Welcome back, fellow armchair generals. This is Gamer1745 with my continuing playthrough of Hearts of Iron 4 with the La Résistance mod, or not mod, DLC, and as well as all the others. And of course, we're playing as the Soviet Union. They've just signed the Treaty of Karivoa. I'm sure basically Romania gives up some of its territory that it took at the end of World War I from Bulgaria, which was on the losing side. So, yeah. Well, yeah, areas of operation, I'm not sure which is better. Along one, Norway has capitulated. Okay. It's still happening. I was looking at an earlier comment on an earlier episode, those that are watching later. I don't know how much effort they're putting still into the AI, combat AI paradoxes for Hearts of Iron 4. I just don't know. But what I was seeing and what is concerning me is in Spain when we were playing, the AI was doing a lot of strategic redeploying of units and relatively short distances. The big problem with that is, although it gets the unit there and like plugs the gap, as it were, and that was often what was happening, either because I was creating a gap by dashing in some armored units, and so it was, down here I broke through and dashed in and grabbed a bunch of territory, and it was grabbing units from various places and strategically redeploying them down here. What is wrong with that is that the unit gets there and it is completely disorganized. So even when it's going on the offensive, it's moving in disorganized units, as opposed to, say, taking longer and then, attacking or, moving in with full organization. Now, with Hearts of Iron 3, you have the phenomenon of the delay in between attacks. And so when you strategically move a unit, you have, in essence, that delay between attacks. But it is not necessarily completely disorganized because you've just strategically redeployed it. So you can't, and you can't strategically redeploy into a province that is already under attack. So you can only strategically redeploy to a province that isn't being attacked, but you are ready to defend it, if the enemy pushes to it. And if you're strategically redeploying into attack, you have that delay after attack, but it is sitting there at, it's a well-organized unit. So you have bad AI judgment, as this is going on for the length of the line. What's the sort of optimum length? And I don't know what it is. But so you have the AI shifting units, not necessarily unnecessarily, but often unnecessarily, by strategic redeployment, and not getting enough time to, especially on the defense, to get them organized before they're attacked. That is a very bad detriment. And additionally to that, you have the situation where for the longer battle lines particularly, is that the AI, because this is one general's command, it'll decide, hey, we have plenty of units up here, but not down here. Let's move one of these units from here all the way down to here. So you have greater shifting of forces as opposed to, well, let's just move this unit to here, this, one of these two units to here, one of these two units to here, and then sort of, shifting around forces more locally, shall we say. So I just don't trust the AI. And so the AI that I'm fighting, because of various things, isn't doing things very well, and always seems to take the broad front strategy, meaning trying to fully fill the front line with units, and not doing that well. And particularly for deep strikes, not just like, which we can definitely see as a potential very good likelihood or necessary of keeping the penetrating line fully filled so that it doesn't get counterattacked and cut off. Sure, but what it often does is devolve into spreading out your armored punch, if you will, into a bigger and bigger area so that it's weaker and weaker and weaker. And so that's also in. Yeah, the AI doesn't understand digging in bonuses. That's another thing. So there's a lot of things that oh, and you're very welcome about the installation video as well. And so that's a lot of the reason why I don't normally play with the AI. Now, in my few multiplayer games, which have been relatively fun, but I've disliked often because they go completely off the rails. Yes. U.S. strategy. One of the first things we're going to do is invade, what was it, Venezuela or Colombia? In the 1930s. Okay, these are the people I'm playing with that think it's reasonable that the U.S. is invading some other countries and grabbing up territory. Yeah, it may make good gameplay sense, but it's sort of broken for me. In that sense, I didn't like it. When actually like playing against the, opponents of one of the games I played is the Raj, actually, fighting the Italians and whatnot, that was fun, fighting a human player. Now with that, and I was playing again as the Raj. Now Japan got decimated by China, so they were just sort of holding it. China had driven them off the mainland. The AI, get this, the AI China drove the human player off the mainland. Okay, so but I had prepared, defensive lines in Burma to defend against Japanese aggression. Well, eventually I broke those up, and so my idea was to use those, because you're multiple fronts, but use the the planned defensive lines along the front here, while human micromanaging, British Raj Commonwealth type units. Oh, well, Free France is broken out over here because Italy sucks. God, the AI sucks. Oh, God, yeah. This is just the. No, I don't expect everything to be just like it was historically. But gamer, don't you want a game that surprises you? How does this happen? I mean, really, how does this happen? Okay, this I get. This I wouldn't be upset at all, because hey, one, is historical. Two, and it's not just my fetish for history or historical things, but that is an element. But two, it is reasonable, say, for Commonwealth nations, because you can be pulling in Australia and India and South Africa and whatnot. It's reasonable for them to be pushing successfully against the Italians. excuse me. Yeah, that is a reasonable thing to have happen. Now, what's happened here? Free France. Okay, so my guess, and I didn't pay attention to it enough, but my guess is what has happened is at some point prior to the fall of France and the creation of Vichy France, French forces were able to push into Italian Libya, and then when the peace treaty happened, these forces went free French, and the Italians at various stages, don't know when, because I just don't know, but at various stages weren't able to keep enough forces to hold Tripoli. Now however much forces they think they need to, hold the English, sure, but how? See, now, because it's these states here. The French had to have taken these states for them to go free French, as opposed to the English taking them with a little bit of French help. And so now, at this point, there very well may be English units sitting here and here, and it's going to, claim territory for free France, sure, at this point. But how do you, and I'm just not, I can imagine, well, this is also United Kingdom too. How is that happening? Oh, probably because Italy didn't have any garrison forces here, and Britain did a naval landing. And so I could see this kind of thing happening here if this was all Britain, because maybe the AI doesn't garrison Tripoli well. It should garrison it because it should garrison most of the port cities, just because of naval invasions. But so I could see this, and then, cutting off, being, tricksy, and, cutting off the Italian forces from all their ports. Oh. The AI, like we say, doesn't understand reserve, doesn't understand digging in, doesn't understand maintaining a reserve, doesn't understand maintaining decent garrisons against, say, naval invasion. Because to the best of my knowledge, let's look here, diplomacy, they are apparently at peace. So this isn't a case of Italy going to war with Greece, and then Greece coming into the Allies, and then the British, for whether it's because of naval landings or some other mechanic, gets the province of, or the state, I should say, of Albania. That could be a reasonable, as opposed to having it being a Greece thing. That could be a reasonable thing, but without Greece in the war, and it looks like we're seeing a British invasion of Rhodes. Okay, well, yeah. That's not an entirely unreasonable thing either. And we can see there are defenses here, which is a good thing. And so, yeah, I can see the. I am not trying to advocate, and I'll look at the chat in a minute. Maybe you guys are screaming that I'm an idiot, but that's fine. I'm not against the idea of, hey, yeah, the AI, it's doing invasions. Good. Yeah. I'm all for the AI doing this. And if the AI wins, great. I'm just wondering how big of an invasion, how bad of the situation that they were able to take this. This should not be happening. Italy should have enough naval presence in the Adriatic here to keep, if not enough naval presence down here. This might be contested enough, maybe, but they should have enough naval presence to keep an invasion from happening up here. This at its core is why I still like Hearts of Iron 3 better, is because I don't normally see these wacky things happening, because this could be happening if I'm playing as Germany instead of the Soviet Union, just because, now at some point I very well may be better intervening, sending German troops to help Italy, sure. This just seems nutty to me. Okay, what are we all saying out power chat? Okay, well, it's fine. Russia let the AI control the infantry, you control the armor units. Yes, that's very good. Very good idea of splitting it between, especially on larger fronts. The AI, as I'm just ranting about it, doesn't do everything wrong, and it isn't entirely wrong to say, like, have the AI do infantry and then taking reserve forces, say, like your cavalry units, maybe as a reserve force to block enemy thrusts, and your armored forces as to make offensive thrusts against them is a good idea. Oh, clearly the Hearts of Iron 4 is combat AI is worse, in my opinion, than Hearts of Iron 3. Hearts of Iron 3 I consider to be bad combat AI. I have to say that because that's what I thought of it prior to Hearts of Iron 4 ever being announced. I thought the AI sucked. Now, it was Hearts of Iron 4. I wasn't around for the beginning of Hearts of Iron 3, so I can't comment on that. I was around at the time before the Motherland DLC was out, and the AIs, the biggest problem with that was a bunch of suicide, particularly Britain, suicide AIs into the suicide landings into the mainland of Europe, that at any undefended port it would invade, and then those forces would be crushed, destroying them and really doing bad things. They fixed that problem with their finest hour, but they did it so much that the AI almost entirely stops doing naval invasions. That's why with Black Ice you see so many scripted invasions, and then they do them sort of at the historical settings and times, because the AI won't invade anymore. And the problem, I hope this is interesting to people looking back at this. The problem was that Britain was doing any sort of invasion with not just some sort of raiding force and take it and leave or something like that, but they were doing, 4 or 5 division, including like Premier Armored Division, invasions on the mainland, while Germany was at peace with all other nations other than Commonwealth nations. So what it would have made a difference to do those invasions once it was at war with the Soviet Union. That might have been a good idea. So keeping the human player, or if you're playing as Italy, say, and there's a German AI player or whatnot, keeping them on their toes and requiring garrisoning the Atlantic Wall, if you will, garrisoning the Atlantic coast, particularly. And I'll get back to some of the chat in a moment. And so when it might have been good, once you're at war with the Soviet Union, particularly heavily committed there, that very well might be good, that all entirely stopped, and to the point that we rarely, if ever, would see something even like a D-Day, a massive invasion. The parameters, what you needed to successfully invade it, however it analyzed the thing, got so out of control. So it sort of, the pendulum swung too far the other way. It sucked. Now, Hearts of Iron 4, at its release, the AI was just a complete shit show. Now it's it's still bad, and it's still worse than Hearts of Iron 3. So it is no longer as terrible as it was. It's gotten much better, and is reasonably okay if everybody, your side, their side, if everybody's doing these damn battle lines. So if it is a game targeted, unfortunately, for everybody drawing battle lines, and it appears that most Hoi 4 players like drawing battle lines and then seeing the outcome. That's fine if that's what you want to play. That's not the game I want to play. So, yeah, I'm playing Hearts of Iron 4 for multiple reasons. I still think it has the potential way forward of being a truly great game. It has that potential. And just saying, oh, well, I'm waiting, and a lot of people have said that, oh, I'm waiting Hearts of Iron 5. Okay, yeah, you may have another 5 or 10 years from this point. I don't know. 5 years probably at least. 10 years is maybe a bit long. And so you have, that. And there's no telling that Hearts of Iron 5 is going to have the pendulum swing back the way 4 players of Hearts of Iron 3 would like it to swing. It may not swing in that direction. It may just be new eye candy for better computers and whatnot. I don't know. And so I really sort of hope, and I would like to be on a mission to build the Hearts of Iron 4 that I would like to see, which shares about 60 to 70% or more of what Hearts of Iron 4 currently is. I just want to change, 30, 40, or at least 20% of what Hearts of Iron 4 is. Now, and so, if both sides are drawing battle plans, like we saw a reasonable thing happen, and that's I will say, it's one of the major tests for the AI, is an AI upon AI fight in France. Not that it has to come out perfectly historically. That isn't the goal. The goal is the AI's, German AI smart enough to try to go around the Maginot Line? Does the French AI react to Germany coming around in a reasonable way? Does all this play out reasonably well? And as we just saw in this last case, it happened reasonably well. So that worked. It didn't maybe work great, but that worked. And so, it's not the worst thing out there, but it's still not where it should be. And so that is one of my complaints why I still like Hearts of Iron 3 better. There's multiple reasons on that. Okay. So, okay, I'm calling. Okay, good night, Tippett. Maybe you've already left, but thanks. Okay. No, you understand this game. It's just wait for it. Thanks, yeah. Britain always likes to invade Bremen if you don't garrison it. Yeah, I do know with Hearts of Iron 3, some of these areas were sort of AI, at least, told not to do. And that goes back partially to player expectations that I think are reasonable, and because they're reasonably based on the idea that landings here were not practically possible. Sure, they can come in here, and, well, again, because of both AIs and human players in this case, they take all your reserve divisions and put them on the front line and don't hold a reserve, because there was a 100,000 plus man army always in reserve in Germany until Western Allies and Soviet forces were on the German border. And it's not just the Volkssturm that's called out. It's the Wehrkress training units, I should say, and the Ersatz divisions that were sort of the home divisions, the training divisions that were mobilized for action. Now, some of those Ersatz divisions had previously been mobilized either temporarily for active combat or permanently beforehand. Sometimes they were, oh shit, we've got to go into Yugoslavia. Well, we've got an ersatz division. Let's just use that as part of the overall invasion. And then after that, okay, it goes back to sort of being a home garrison training outfit that, is trying to supply, take units, your recruits either going to go to as replacement troops or forming new units that have spent some time in a home ersatz division. Kind of thing. So sometimes they went back to being that, and sometimes they sort of mobilized to being full normal front divisions. And of course, as Germany's being invaded, they're all being, all the schools are like being cleaned out. Combat schools, anti-tank schools, artillery schools, both the trainers and the students, as well as the equipment there, are being mobilized and sent into units for front action as things are collapsing. So that's as things are collapsing. And so it doesn't do the reserves that would have been here that, sure, you very well may be able to do a sort of super DEP, not quite a D-Day kind of landing successfully and take Wilhelmshaven and do lots of damage here. But your losses from the local reaction forces would have been tremendous. But also the idea that for a serious invasion, you're going to have a lot of supply ships coming out of England, coming up to here, that are going to get all kinds of naval attacks, submarine, both submarine and surface attacks, the E-boats coming out and with motor torpedoes and whatnot, and then all kinds of air attacks. And it just would have been a real problem trying to invade this to that it becomes impractical. Now, it would change a bit and so the AA is just programmed not to do that. It would change a bit or considerably if you had a proper, allies occupying Norway and then them trying to come into, Denmark and whatnot. That would be a different sort of invasion and capability. So Britain, why paradoxes of success with it being all AI? Why not have a series of scripted plans? They don't want to do the scripted battle plans. Way back when conceptually and I talked to them, again, this was public, so nothing private here, through the forum messages, I talked to them. It wasn't like I went and visited them or called them on the phone, but talked to them. They were convinced. I don't know if they're still convinced, but they haven't publicly changed anything that I've heard. They were convinced that they were going to be able to build an AI that was going to be dynamic and fight this out. And that scripting was going to be a short-term, I'm somewhat putting words in their mouths, but sort of a short-term fix that was going to cause long-term problems. So they didn't want to do scripted scripted battle plans. One of my ideas was to simply build a UI situation so people could build sort of like this battle planning thing here, but build battle plans and then have sort of scripted conditions for the battle plans to happen, control these sets of provinces and have this much units or whatever it is, have a conditions based thing. And then the AI can then the AI can go, oh, well, I have 10 scripts that meet this condition. I hold Paris, this is like late 44 or something like that. I hold Paris, I hold Dieppe, and, I hold Orleans or something like that, as well as some of these other things. I hold all this, and Germany holds that. Okay, and, and I have 25 divisions on the mainland of Europe, and I have this and this and these things. Okay, and I have 10 battle plans that I could choose from. Now, the AI may not be able to, from that point, choose which plan is best, because it's already looked at all of the conditions. Germany has this many divisions in these areas or whatever it is. Just have a series of conditions that the AI could set in I mean, the human designer could set in, and then the AI can do it. So it comes up, okay, I have 10 suitable plans. And then it can be a random choice. And it could also be, you could put weights like I do for the AI picking which choice to make in an event. You can have weights. Well, this plan has a weight of 10, and this plan has a weight of 2. Well, more often I'm going to pick, out of a random selection, a weight of 10 unit or a plan versus a weight of 2. But once in a while, I'll pick that weight of 2 just out of random, choices. And so you could weight them, and so it could be humans. So it's not like, because part of the thing was once you know the AI plan for defending France, for France, defending France in 1940, once you learn that, then you can have, you can plan around it. Yeah, you can. But if you had a bunch of them bunch of crowdsourced thing, but they just blew this all off as they're going to do good AI. And I was asking them at the time, what in the hell makes you think you're going to be able to do this good AI since you've not yet been able to do this good AI? Oh, no, don't worry, we're going to do this. And I don't know whether, and I'm not going to say any names, partially because I may be wrong, because it's been more than a year now, a couple of years. I don't know whether the guy sitting on the other side of the keyboard was Gamer's right, but the company says that this is the policy, so I'm going to defend the policy because that's what they give me the paycheck to do. So I know what I'm saying is stupid, but I need to say it. And I know it's not going to happen. Or whether they truly believe that, hey, yeah, every time I've hit my head with a hammer, it hurts. But the 30th time, it ain't going to hurt. I'm going to try it one more time to see if I've, not going to hurt when I hit my head with a hammer. What makes them think that they're going to do a good combat AI? I don't know. They've yet to be able to do that. Daniel versus Hoi 4 devs. And just outplaying. Yeah, well, yeah, Daniel is really good. Dan 9L. Yes, Daniel. I just know him as a sort of an online thing, of course. He's really good, and he is one of the best sort of min-max players. He's an in-house beta tester or alpha tester or whatever. And he is super good, and I have watched some of his stuff, including watch him play one of the Black Ice mods. He is really, really good at doing that kind of stuff. So, yeah. And I do know, at least it has been their policy for testing the AI out, is AI versus AI fights, not AI versus human, because they've just maybe gone to the point of acknowledging that they're not going to be able to make an AI that can fight the human. So I don't know, other than they, well, thank you. Other than that, they've already gone down this path and they don't have the budget. And I'm not saying Paradox is, however big and budgeted the company is, the Hoi 4 development team, because selling DLCs is what they're now selling out of it. Which, thank God, they didn't just release the damn thing and then walk away from it, because that would have been god-awful terrible shit. But the budget for the development team to go, well, yeah, we're going to create this whole new UI for people to, draw their battle plans and then lock them in, and this is what you do, and we're going to then do this, and then however much programming that may be, as in hours of human time. There very well could be in the tens of thousands of hours, because I'm thinking, it's not just going to be 100 hours or something and have one person spend, 40-hour week. So spend 2.5 weeks or something, and, one AI programmer and even one UI programmer to program it, give us a few buttons, and that we take, our this kind of thing, and create battle plan for defense of France, case orange, or whatever you want to call it. And this is that. And then once, with then, okay, phase one, and then phase two, if this and this has if like this province and this province has fallen here, then all units here fall back to this line as soon as possible, or just once Nancy has fallen, fall all units back to this defensive line. And then, but once this has happened, then this, and then, but once this has gotten to point of this plan has failed, meaning these things, will now try to AI look to see if you have an alternative battle plan. Oh, well, yes, I have a battle plan that says that if all of this side of the river here, God, I hate states. That could be another rant. Again, and I've done it too many times. But once all these states here, draw a battle plan to defend this sort of area here, these provinces here. Oh, I have that. Okay, we're going to shift from that case orange defensive plan to case 25, this defensive plan for this area down here, and it needs 10 divisions. Okay, I have 10 divisions. I'm going to deploy these 10 divisions and follow this, while up here there's, case alpha trying to defend over here, and have these different look at cases, and then have, what do I have to plans? Then once I determine it's failed or succeeded, now once it's succeeded, oh, well, now it could be I'm defending France, but I've now fully think I'm defending everything I need to defend, and I have 20 extra divisions. Oh, well, with 20 extra divisions beyond my defensive needs, and that includes like for defending, against Italy, and maybe whatever you may think you need to defend against France, and defending against possible naval invasions. Once you have 20 extra divisions, well then, I have a plan for that. The U.S.S.R offensive kind of thing. And so, we'll do a U.S.S.R offensive with those 20 divisions. And if that's, and sort of periodically reevaluate conditions as to pick which scripted plans. I think that would be an excellent solution. But no, they're going to develop an AI, a wonder AI, that's just going to be smarter than the humans. Yeah, I know you're finding it fun, 27, but there's not that many viewers, which means they may have gotten bored and already left. So, yeah. You hear the exasperation of my voice. Again, this has the potential of being such a great thing. And knowing some of the really great AIs being developed out there, I bet you there are AI programmers, and not even necessarily AIs that heuristically, I think I'm saying that right, learn, that are actually learning AIs that learn as it fights these things, but just simply the sort of preset AIs that this is, that there are probably programmers out there, whether starting with the current code or starting over, could program a damn good AI. But I don't know, one, how many of them are out there. And if there's not a lot, I'm sure they're expensive. They're going to make, I don't know, $1 million a year, in their salary, not just like $100,000 a year or something. They're going to make some big, really good AI. You have some really good AI programmers, probably Google or whoever is scooping them up. So they probably exist. How in the hell do you have this state here and this state here with having this province on this side of this river? This very well may be Hesse. That very well may be the political thing, but this is the this whole mechanic. That's what really bugs me about this mechanic. It is state mechanic. And then we get where's supply zones, where is this all one? No, this can't be one supply zone. Supply areas. Okay, well, I'm not seeing if this is all one supplier. That can't be. I don't know. I don't know. But some of these supply. How do you have this supply? Well, I guess it's larger here. How do you have this supply zone with these three provinces in this supply zone and not in this supply zone. How do you have that? How can you possibly have this? Oh, well, it's based on the state. Okay, good. And how the hell do you? Yes, this is the political Brandenburg. Oh, okay, good. But how do you? Yes, this is. Okay, this is just walking into the walls because the game is still in a bad state. Yeah. And so this is just the thing, you know. Where is it? This state, actually, here. This is politically right. This is there was actually the Gao. Once the Sudeten Gao was actually looked like this, and I think it actually may have included a little bit over here, but it was contiguous. Really was this sort of stupid level of situation because it was created with the fall of Czechoslovakia and throughout the German Reich. Instead of, they created this to sort of please the Sudeten party leaders, the Sudeten Deutsch party leaders, the SDP, Sudeten Deutsch party, leaders, once they get integrated into the National Socialist Party, they keep this here like this instead of adding, these two provinces or whatever to this Gao here and, breaking it up. They kept it like this just because of political expediency. So that is a correct thing, but that obviously is not a supply zone. I mean, God, obviously not. And I know I've jumped over topics, but yeah, Magdeburg should be in a similar supply zone to here than this side of the river. I know this is Berlin in the center, but oh God, Yeah, people, how do you do that? This is just why I hate the state mechanic. Okay, but back to the sort of the AI rant. So yeah, it may be $1 million a year or something, and I don't know how many people it would take, because you don't necessarily want to spend 10 years on the project because, to have it done, or obviously that's maybe a bit long time, but. And this is what they did find a problem. One of the reasons that they stated, and I believe it's true, is that during development and one of the delays and why the AI was so bad at release is that 2 or 3 times during development of Hearts of Iron 4, they made significant major changes to the game that the AI, to either continue with the AI that they had already developed, to add to it to make the changes was just going to complicate the AI significantly, and running the AI would run through so many more processes that it was going to bog things down and slow it down. Or they had to just simply scrap it and start at base level 0 again and start over again. So that's what they did 2 or 3 times. They entirely scrapped the AI because they had, for whatever reasons, whether because of AI problems or just because of design decision changes, that they had to go back over and completely scrap the AI and start fresh. And so it was just not ready. So they spent a lot of money, not just time. Got to figure time is money because you're paying for, human monkeys. I don't, but, I, imagine monkeys chained to a typewriter or to a computer, people there to sit there and code that are well paid. And these are well paid people. And I don't want to discourage them or deride them for their intelligence or their ability. But so you have to pay these people, whether they're doing, making these graphical images or whether they're making the 3D map, and these are different people, and they have a pool of talents at Paradox, so they having graphics artists that makes these images here, you can't assign them to doing something with the AI. They're not like multi-talented in the sense that you just plug them in. So they only have so many people that are AI talented, and they have a bunch of games in-house, not just because they both publish in-house games as well as other people's, like the people who do Cities Skyline. I believe that's a different company that actually does the programming of it. They just publish it. They don't make it. They may consult on it and have influence over its development, but they may sort of produce it. But the actual dev house, I don't know the exact arrangements with them, but it's a different dev house. But Stellaris, Hoy, Crusader Kings, EU, those are all in-house development. So they have these, collection of AI programmers, and they seem to do the AI well for things like EU. They seem to do that well. They seem to have that down. And so, getting these guys, again, I don't want to disparage, because I can't even come close to doing their work. So I'm not evaluating from a guy who knows how to program AI and to say they suck compared to other AI programmers. We may still be talking about brilliant AI programmers that just have a task that's beyond the current capabilities of most AI programmers with the time, budget, restraint, whatever, but the product they put out sucks. They may not suck. Again, I want to be very clear. I don't necessarily think the AI programmers suck, because I don't have any good evaluation for it. And I don't know of another, other than, say, Hearts of Iron 3 or something, which does a bit better job, but just a bit better at this stage. Not a greatly better job. But I don't know of another game that does it as well. And don't throw up Strategic Command or War Plan to me, because I know those games well. Those games, comparatively, well, this is a turn-based game technically. This is not a real-time strategy game, but the turns are 1 hour in length, not 1 day, 1 hour, and it sort of sits initiative between it. So technically, it's not a real-time strategy. It's actually done in turns, but the turns are so short that humans perceive them as a real-time thing. So it's not actually real-time. It is a turn-based thing, but it's actually maybe hourly. Yeah, no, the turns are actually hourly turns. They're not daily turns. They're hourly turns. So every turn is an hour. And so the amount of AI programming that has to go in for every hour, because it has to reevaluate this every hour, as opposed to Strategic Command or War Plan every 2 weeks or 4 weeks or whatever the turn is in Strategic Command, so that the levels of AI are so much more simplistic for Strategic Command and War Plan that you get a very different thing. And so it's Herbert who does the AI programming for Strategic Command. I think it's Alvaro who's doing it for, or maybe he's getting somebody else, I don't know, doing it for War Plan. But in comparison, those AIs are simplistic. They really are simplistic compared to what is going on here. I know that much. So don't tell me that, those are, and don't then also some sort of tactical AI with a limited, map board that we're playing on. And that's also different. Maybe not as simplistic, but it's not as complicated as this. So I don't know of another game at this level. And I would love if somebody wants to point one out to me that is doing better. So I don't know of one that's doing better, but I do know there are better options, like I say, of a bunch of scripts that, and if they don't have, they can make a few scripts that are, I figured out how France defends it, and if I just hit here with 8 Panzer divisions, I'm going to crush through and drive straight to Paris and break the script. Yeah. Okay, but then if you open it up to, like I was saying earlier, to having us have a UI to create scripts, so we don't have to program it. So you have to program a UI that saves it into a script format that then can be saved as sort of, like mod files kind of thing. And people can choose to add to the game, and then the AI just sort of evaluates and picks the most, appropriate script that it can find based on its category. So it's just sort of an AI choosing program, which I think should be able to be done. Now, this again will probably take thousands of hours to program. And you could even go, well, if I can't find anything that, you could even say, even like with what we have here, you even keep this AI. If I can't find a script that reasonably fits my parameters of the conditions, I will revert to the base AI in the game. If they were to do that, if they were to implement that. Now, again, I don't know how complicated that would be, but if they were, I think this could start to become a great game. And now what's like, would not have been better to get the game to the point that they were happy with it and then do the AI programming? Yeah, it's time. Because let's say to program the AI, it's going to take a year, okay? Or it's going to let's say it's going to take a year of man hours. And they did say, and I will agree, that simply throwing more people at it, you can just end up having more cooks and not having causing more problems. So, and there can be different AIs, there can be different AI programmers. Say the AI that's programming for production, the AI that's programming for diplomacy can be entirely different than the person who, well, once you're at war, what do you do? So there can be somebody who's just, or a group of people, a small group of people, programming combat AIs. But let's say it's going to take a year to program the combat AI. And let's just say you only have one qualified programmer to program the AI. So if you wait to get to the game where you like it, then you've got to sit on it for a year and program it out before you release it. And by that time, maybe you're no longer satisfied. There's new games out. People have greater, game revenue doesn't justify this improvement to AI in Paradox's eyes. Yeah, continuing revenue for it. The budget. See, it's a budget issue. Again, if you can throw endless amounts of money, if I ever win some super big lottery, trust me, I'm going to try to buy Hearts of Iron 3 and or Hearts of Iron 4. So, hey, if you want to crowdfund $1 billion for me, guys, I'll buy Hearts of Iron 3 and Hearts of Iron 4, and I'll then, because I need more than that, because then I'll find some, $1 million AI people that have proven themselves, and I'll get them to figure this out and make us a good game. But I don't know that, and then we can sell it, and of course the crowdfunding people will get their copies for crowdfunding it. But I don't know that they may have spent an individual may have spent $10,000 in crowdfunding, if we ever get enough money to do all this stuff, end up paying $10,000 for the game. I don't know if there's enough people out there that would want this to do it. So yeah, I don't know the cost versus the return on the cost, and as opposed to them just going, yeah, this is as good as it's going to get, guys, we're just going to keep making new shit for it, and hopefully that satisfies people while we're building Stellaris or what is it, Sin City, or no, it's whatever their new sort of gangster game, gangster strategy game, and we're going to be building these make more money, and not necessarily all bad decisions in making money, but make more money. Getting back to their two original devs from Warrior 3, they knew that they were doing what players wanted, not the dev teams that only care about pucks. Well, the dev teams are reacting to some of the massive negative comments the Hearts of Iron 3, in my opinion, are sorry, it took me a while to get to your comment. The pendulum swinging different ways, and base sales, and because they looked at these metrics, base sales for Hearts of Iron 4 have done very well, actually, and because they see how many hours we play this game via Steam. There's lots and lots of players that keep playing the game. So they look at it and go, we've sold many copies and people are still playing it. So they look at it as a success. So unfortunately, they see this as a success. Hold the line, gamers using front lines. Yes, I am using, but hello, Ari. Take my money. Yes, I was in my mind, and not really on paper or anything, designing, before I ever encountered Hearts of Iron, designing it a game similar in my mind of what I would do. But this is going back 30 years and computer technology has developed, of just sort of how I would do it. There's a few things that I'm not going to go publicly talk about that Hearts of Iron 3 or 4 doesn't do. So if ever anybody really did throw money at me to develop a game, I do have a game in me that is, I think, superior to Hearts of Iron. Now, Hearts of Iron definitely has added things that have influenced me, and I would do best taking Hearts of Iron 3 and 4 and creating Hearts of Iron 5. But I don't have the programming talent to do it. I don't have it at all. I may have a project lead development talent in doing it, but if you expect me to sit at a keyboard and start programming like the Hearts of Iron team, including the project lead Don Lin, does have, and he's good at that stuff. Trust me, he is good at the stuff. I don't have any of those talents. But I think I could lead a project, meaning I know enough to lead the project and know the goals and whatnot to do it. I have that in me, but I also have in me how to fix 3 or 4, or fix both, or just fix 4 so that it way outdoes 3 and is sort of the super game that we all wanted. Yeah, so somehow either I stupidly win the lottery or, but hey, first just make me a big famous YouTuber. I mean, that's half the battle there, but you got, yeah, I could come up with ways doing it that I think would work and make make this a truly great game. And especially if you go to some of my concepts that, again, I'm not going to talk about, it would satisfy the casual player, the people who sort of like, or rather like, Hearts of Iron 4 the way it is, without ruining it for the people who like, shall we say, the people who like. And in some things, I think they've gone too far. It's not bad or wrong, but some of the texts, they've gone a little more complication that they need to for the Black Ice Hearts of Iron 3 team have gone. It's a little more complication than they need to, but would satisfy those players. And sort of my concept would satisfy both the casual players and the detailed players, but I'm just for various reasons, I'm just not going to give it away without and it's not maybe in my ideas, I'm not saying other people haven't had them. I've just never seen anybody come out and publicly say or have in a game some of the ideas that I would have. So I'm keeping them to myself until either somebody wants to pay me as a consultant or hire me, or I get to make my own game, because whether they're fools or whether they're brilliant people, sponsor, pay, actually fund a production development. Whether, it could be somebody like Paradox that goes, okay, gamer, we'll hire you to produce Hearts of Iron 5. You can have a development studio in California, and we'll funnel the money to you to start producing Hearts of Iron 5. No, I'll take that job. If they want to start, in figuring that Hearts of Iron 4 is going to have like another 4 or 5 year or whatever progress and whatnot, and then yeah, I'll start doing it. Because you're on the spot one. Thank you. Yeah. the hardest community for you to satisfy would be the comp community. Don't get the comp community, Stalin. I'm just going to call you Stalin. I don't get comp community. I get community. I just don't that. I like a good historical RTS war game. Yes, just because I like military history. Yeah, and my concept wouldn't be a straitjacket that some of the Slytherin games or Matrix games, whatever you want to call them, however you think of them as branding, are partially they're straitjacketed because of the limitations of the AI. Partially they're straitjacketed just because the designers want them that way. They're sort of the pendulum is too much history. Paradox, Hearts of Iron 4 particularly, is too much alt history in the base game. I'm not against the idea whether it's in mod. Oh, competitive. Okay. Sorry, I didn't get the thanks for that in the competitive. Hardest community satisfied. I don't. I'm thinking the way I'm thinking. Well, yeah. Sorry, I'm missing what you're saying. BC. I just battle cruiser, battle commanders, battle plane. 27 tennis. Please define the term BC for me to get full clarity. Maybe I'm just fuzzy at the moment and something I've heard of and just not thinking of it at the moment. Black ice. Oh, okay, yeah. I'm okay. I normally just see it as BICE, but yeah, okay. Just yes, and it's sort of that. Take Hearts of Iron 3, combine. Yeah, but their Total Realism Project, TRP, was developing what was going to be the final DLC for Hearts of Iron 3, but because they canceled that because he was taking too long. I understand that he I don't know him well, but he stated that he had gone through or was going through a nasty divorce, and that derailed his production schedule for developing what would be the DLC. And since that got delayed so much, and they were getting ready, and which turned out to be premature, so they should have stuck with it. And he was even doing some AI improvements, my understanding, for Hearts of Iron 3, that was going to be the final DLC. He may have not known it as final, but because they prematurely announced Hearts of Iron 4, they thought it was going to come out much sooner, of course. They derailed it, and so he did release it as a mod, but I know he was bitterly disappointed by it. He, I think, understood Paradox canceling on him because he wasn't able to get stuff done in a timely manner. I don't know I don't know if he had any contracts. I don't know if he had any time goals set, but he wasn't able to meet them. And my understanding is just because of his life situation got ripped apart on him, he wasn't able to do it. And I think it was maybe a side project in life and not his main profession. And so he was bitterly disappointed. I don't know if so bitter at Paradox, but just bitter and disappointed that he didn't get to release it. That would have done a lot of things, including adding railways or a railway mechanic-like thing to Hearts of Iron 3. And that would have really made Hearts of Iron 3 much better had they done one more good DLC before switching over to 4. But they didn't do that. That's a missed opportunity, including opportunity for good revenue from them. And so, yeah. So it's more than just simply taking Hearts of Iron 3 and Black Ice and combining it, calling it Hoi 5. I really love things like production of equipment. I love the idea of splitting up military ICs from civil ICs from naval dockyards. So you can't just say focus everything on tank production or everything on building new factories. Now you can, and I like it. Now I normally just don't use the convert mechanism for various reasons. But it's a good mechanism to have to convert, because there is some civilian ICs probably couldn't readily be converted to military ICs. But if you look at some civilian ICs represent, say, shoemakers that theoretically turn into boot makers. Clothing manufacturers turn into uniform manufacturers. Obviously, they're making clothes and shoes, but for military purposes. So there's definitely some of that. And some of the machine tools that are used to make other machine tools can simply be converted to making, weapons. And big machine tools, big forging tools, instead of forging other big forging tools, can be converted to forging tank turrets or something. So there is definitely some swapping back and forth, but that is not easy. But some of these mechanics that are just simply these three things: basic military factories, basic civilian factories, and naval dockyards. Given my design, I would probably potentially throw in 2 or 3 more other factory types. Again, I'm not going to go into details of what I've had in my head since before Hearts of Iron 4. So some development company, whether Slytherin, I don't know that they have the budget or whatever, wants to create another game. I have stuff that is different, that isn't just copying them even in just concept, let alone in coding. Because I don't know the coding well enough to copy it in coding, but definitely my concept is always have had more of different factory types. And so this kind of thing here and this kind of thing is what continually makes me think that this could, one, be a great game. And even if it's not going to be a great game, it can still end up being better eventually than Hearts of Iron 3 can. But if the AI will continue to completely suck, that's the biggest one. If the AI will continue to completely suck, is the biggest thing that's keeping me from thinking that it's going to eventually overtake. Because we have the new Intel mechanic. Okay, the problem is gamers' version of Hoi is one that greatly hurts the casual player. No, actually, I don't dislike the idea of battle plans. So, and especially if my game that was going to be developed, and I could start explaining it to you all, but I don't want to give it out too much, and I don't know how deep I should go, but it wouldn't be inaccessible to casual players. Yeah. Yes, you're absolutely right. Hoi 3 takes more understanding than Hoi 4. And that was one of the design elements that they chose, and I agree with, in Hearts of Iron 4, was everything was going to be clear to the player as to what was going on. There's a whole lot of stuff that it hasn't even been figured out by the modders yet of how it works in Hearts of Iron 3. It's hard to understand. Everything was meant to have an easy understanding of what it is and what it does and why it's happening in Hearts of Iron 4. And that is something that is something that is a good design decision, and something that, not everything they've done, everything they've changed to is bad in 4. I'm not an inherent Hoi 4 hater. I am not. I looked forward to the development of Hoi 4, and even with all the hate that's been thrown at it, I've often really liked and given a chance at Hoi 4 and think it has potential there. different countries inherently unbalanced, so competitive gameplay. Okay, yeah, competitive gameplay, messy, difficult. Well, this is why with competitive gameplay, and that's people that you have to deal with. Yes, this isn't chess. The one unbalanced thing is that what white always goes first in chess. Um, but otherwise everything is equal in chess, so it is purely up to the competitors. It is never meant to be that, but this is to sort of balance competitive versus historical. This is why you can't just go, okay, 1936, oh, have war, 1936, have war if you want. And U.S. first thing you're going to do is move in and take Mexico, United Mexican States. What the hell's going on here? I don't know. Maybe that's just the official name of Mexico. I don't know. First thing, well, we're going to grab Mexico and do this and grab. Or, first thing, 1936. Okay, U.S. declares war on Germany and is developing a battle plan that's an invasion of Germany. First thing, 1936, going to invade here. Is to have a historical limitations as to when certain nations and under what conditions certain nations can get into the war. And so France is probably always going to be screwed. And it's sort of, to be somewhat historical, sort of kind of needs to be screwed. Now, of course, Poland is completely screwed. I mean, there's no way around it. But, and so there has to be, when can the Soviet Union declare war on Germany? Which may be sometime after serious landings are happening in Britain. So once Germany is landed in Britain, the Soviet Union can choose to attack if they want to, but they can't attack until that point. So Germany doesn't have to strongly garrison its borders when it's attacking France, but really knows that it's going to have to start taking on the Soviet Union if it's invading Britain. Now, if it thinks it can put the nail in the Britain's coffin fast, then yeah, because we have an army that's going to hold here and help hold Hungary and Romania and blitz Britain out and take it fast. Well, then okay, that frees up all the Panzer division. Then they move over here, and now they can just roll east or something. Yeah, and so that kind of thing. So competitiveness would work with certain historical limitations and sort of when can the Soviet Union start on the war. Equipment building in Hoi 4 is nice indeed. For me, the basic game plays. Yeah, it's easy. Draw a line, see what. I agree. That's why I like to do micromanaging things. Okay, and Stalin, you may be very, very right. I may not understand the competitive community at all. That could be something I'm completely against, or I'm not against, but completely just don't get. I'm definitely, I want to play plausible World War II. That's what I want to play, is a plausible World War II. What I don't want to play is 1936 Risk. And I don't necessarily, sometimes we've talked sort of dumbing down as in this is just sort of a super Axis and Allies game. No, I mean Risk as in the nations are sort of pre-balanced out. The powers are. Germany gets enough. Everybody is sort of. Some nod to geographical difficulties or whatever, but you define, I don't know, 6, 8, whatever nations that are majors, and then balance them out like a chess game, and then go, It is plausible World War II. Okay, well, then if it's plausible World War II, then you have a situation that the U.S. cannot get into the war until Japan attacks. Or if it gets into the war and has high casualties in any one battle, the national unity will crumble as, why die for foreigners kind of thing. I've never played Hearts of Iron 2, so I don't know how much that is that, Arno. So, yeah, and so because without the Pearl Harbor attack here, the U.S. would not, and I repeat, would not have put up with the casualties. And there was actually really, was it Iwo Jima or Saipan or no, Saipan's here. Maybe it was Saipan or one of the battles that did get a fair amount of negative publicity in some newspapers. That was the high casualty counts. That was really starting to shock the American public. Starting to. But talking too long here. So, yeah, it's the, and even the, casualties and losing battles like Kesselring, or not Kessel, Kasserine Pass, those would have shocked the American public too much without Pearl Harbor happening, that there would have been and there would have always been a huge peace movement going on had just FDR intervened. And that would greatly weaken, and Americans would not have put up with rationing of any sort and other things like that. They just would have said F you and no, and you can't force the American people. Not really. We're starting to see, like, our recent, I know this has turned into a long talking episode, I'll have to mark it as such. Our recent current conditions that we're all living under are starting to push us in America a bit too much. Whether they came out as orders or they came out as being asked, the stay-at-home directives, shall we call them, Americans consented to that. It was the consent of the governed. But we are better armed than even our army. Yeah, unless you're going, well, they'll nuke a city. Yeah, no, the U.S. Army or Air Force isn't going to nuke a city. They're not going to start dropping bombs on cities because you didn't obey the government. No, we're better armed than way better armed than the police forces. And even if you start to put the army on the street just as a sort of a defensive measure, putting them around government buildings or something, as sort of a defensive measure, we're better armed than the army is in that case, quite honestly. So you can't enforce this on America, and that's also the case back in the 30s, even more so than today, because of things, and the army wasn't that big. So you can't force America into World War II without the consent of the governed. And if it looks like just a volunteer war, sort of like the supersized American volunteer group in China. Now those were just fighters, fighter pilots and fighters. But if it's, sort of expeditionary forces and it's not a draft, it's just sort of like, volunteers to go fight in our crusade in Europe. Yeah, that's going to keep America heavily nerfed. And they won't put up with all of the production. They won't put up with, I can't buy a new car. No, you keep those automobile factories going. You don't get to turn them into tank factories or truck factories. You keep producing my cars for me. So that you have to keep America on a civilian setting without direct attacks. And that, I think it was it could be Peleliu. I've read the Nimitz biography and a few other things on it, and I'm a little fuzzy on that. But it was, some of the stuff that really started to shock the Americans, the level of casualty. But trust me, the Americans weren't, the casualties levels, whether it's Saipan or Peleliu or whatever it wasn't to the stage of, oh my God, this is so terrible, we've got to quit. No, this is, oh my God, this is so bad. Are our leaders making the good decisions? You know, whether it means to, oh, well, this island is too fucking hard to take. Maybe we ought to pull the hell out of it and just surround it and starve it. Or, do we have to take that island? Or should we spend an extra 20 days bombarding it with artillery and air attacks? That was, in everything that I've got from my reading, the only real questions were, was our, leadership making the right decisions? Whether it was the division general, should he be fired, or was it the overall theater commander Nimitz on the sort of the Pacific campaign, MacArthur sort of on the island hopping Philippines campaign, the Pacific out here, Nimitz or MacArthur, should they be fired, or some intermediate, those were the only real questions going on. It wasn't whether we should be in the war, whether we should be fighting China or Japan. So that they were questioning at that point. And even some of the sort of, Battle of the Bulge and some of the reverses and some of the, Anzio, those were only to whatever level that they were getting into popular opinion that things may not be going great, because it's highly censored press, of course. Is only should maybe a particular general be fired? Should maybe we withdraw and invade some other place? It wasn't like should we leave? So America was in it, but because of both bad behavior of Germany particularly, and long-term bad behavior by Japan and their attack on Pearl Harbor, America was in it to win it. But without that, and so if you're talking competitive play, Japan, just don't attack America. Don't attack the Philippines. And if you're saying that attacking Singapore and Indonesia and some of the other colonies is enough to bring America into it, yeah, that America needs to be nerfed. It's going to produce a hell of a lot, but it's only going to produce a quarter or something of the production capabilities. And if you're going to have a draft, you better not have high casualties, or you're going to get serious revolt risk in America, and actual revolt risks, because nobody's going to want their sons to go off to fight for some foreigners, and especially foreigners that most Americans aren't related to. Or it's got to be a volunteer army, and that's a whole nother thing. I was when Japan took over Asia, but the Axis surrendered simply because Spain didn't use their volunteer tanks on the Soviet Union, and D-Day just barely landed and could easily have been beaten back. But because 3 tanks weren't doing what they were, or I presume you mean tank divisions, they gave up when they could have won the game in a year's time. Yeah, well, multiplayer is... Well, okay, one of the players need to be having, unless they're truly going for some competitive, esports title of some sort. It's when it no longer becomes fun for the player, they quit. So if things don't work out what they think, then they quit and whatever. I have mixed feelings on multiplayer, and as Ari knows, I have a desire for a multiplayer campaign for Hearts of Iron 3 to play one, but it's not going to be scripted by any means, but it definitely, when certain nations get to join the war versus when Germany or Japan decides to attack them, that will be highly limited and established beforehand, and of course everybody, by volunteering to play, is consenting to the basic rules. So yeah. Well, I think we're going to end this rant episode here of what I see wrong and what could be a glorious, glorious game. And I truly mean that it could be a glorious, glorious game. And yes, that's partially just a mix of Hoi 3 and Hoi 4 with better AI. But it could really be something stupendous. Okay, thanks everyone for watching. Thanks for liking the videos. If you haven't already, please subscribe. Love to hear your comments on any of the topics I've been given. I've been giving over the episode. So thanks so much. See you next time for more Hearts of Iron.